Queen's preliminary hearing is set for next week, and this morning the mothers of James Kolstad, Michael Holsenbeg, and Bailey Despot are joining us to talk a little bit more about their cases. Good morning, ladies. Thanks so much for being with us.
Good morning.
Thank you.
So first off, I just want to ask you, I mean, it's been 3 years since this all came to an head. How are you each holding up, and do you plan to be at the hearings next week?
We will absolutely be at the preliminary hearings. It's expected to go 2 days, and there will be evidence presented by the district attorney, and we will be there to see it all.
And you both plan to be there as well?
Yeah, I will definitely be there. I never miss a court hearing that he's at. So, yeah.
And then Di, what about you?
I will be there.
You three have become kind of, you are a team. You have formed a charity, you formed an alliance here. And I think a lot of people would think, you know, after last year with the revelations that we heard from the charges from the district attorney's office, that indictment, that could have driven a wedge between the friendship and the alliance with the accusations against Bailey, despite the fact that she's still missing. How has that impacted your relationships and your alliance?
Well, we found out over the last 3 years that we're stronger together.
Absolutely.
And if some of us, well, like if one of us can't make it or do something, the other two kind of take the lead, and we do that back and forth a lot. And,
I would actually say that it's brought us closer together. We realize that we are moms, we're not our children.
That's right.
And we know that we're stronger together.
And our children made choices, and that we certainly wouldn't necessarily agree with. We've learned a lot over the last few years about our kids and their lives, but we also know that any individual is not the sum is the sum total of their life, not just the last year or 2 years of their life. And we knew our kids pretty well. I think all of us did, and saw the positives and the difficulties, and so it's not like we went into this. We did go into this all with eyes wide open, and we're very honest with law enforcement, and I think that helped with the investigation.
Jane, when I last spoke to you, you were on the side of Rosedale Highway in the area where Bailey was last seen. And it's been 3 years, I know, this last weekend. Why did you go back there?
Well, I didn't plan on going there. It's a vacant lot just west of Driver and Rosedale Highway. I was headed downtown to the victim's drive-through, but it's like, I got to go over here. I used to go to Matt Queen's neighborhood because that's the last place I saw her. The lot, I didn't know about it. It's her last location, so I don't know if that means like a cell phone being or what they found. But that's the only spot that I have. Like, I don't have a grave or anything to go to. So, I was drawn to that spot, and I just, you know, talked to her and talked to God, and, you know, and with grief, it's, you have good days and bad days. 2 steps forward, 5 steps back. That's what I say. So, I'm hoping for answers to what happened to her, where she's at, so her story can be told.
Do you hold out hope that she's still alive? What are you hoping to learn?
You know, you always want to have that little bit of hope for, now it's just for like, okay, just a second, and then it's like, no, reality sits back in, and it's like, you know, now my hope is that I find answers and understanding and, you know, what happened.
Answers are something that all three of you are still searching for. There's so many missing pieces to these puzzles. April 8th marked 3 years since James was shot and killed, and yet no arrests named, no suspects named. Where are you? Are you still in regular contact with investigators? What have you learned? Do you think that are still tips coming in?
Well, I know there's tips still coming in. I've learned that it's not a sprint, it's going to be a marathon. I have full confidence in our detective, Chad Garrett. He's in it for the long haul to make sure that when he does make an arrest, that it's going to stick. And so I have every confidence in the process and our law enforcement and what they're doing in James's case. A lot of the things that they know they can't tell anyone, because then it would compromise his case. His case is active, it's not a cold case, and so I just take one moment at a time and know that it's going to be, it's not like it is on TV, it's not instant.
Absolutely. These things take time. I mean, we saw the years go by before we saw any real action, but we know that now in retrospect there was a lot happening behind the scenes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
And the preliminary hearing is next week. Do you expect to learn quite a bit of new information? We will hear from some witnesses next week, in fact.
We had, keep in mind that we provided an enormous amount of information from the beginning. People who would call and talk with us, what we suspected, all of that. We were up front at the very beginning with Detective Garrett. And so they started from all the stuff, you know, they started where we gave all the information to them, and then that communication back to us stops, of course. And so it felt like for quite a while there, we were very active in gathering information and names and stories and phone numbers and all those things. And then once we handed it off, then the sitting and waiting begins. And so we've been doing that now through, and as Di said, it is not like on TV. You know, there's a hearing scheduled, and then there's a postponement, and then there's a hearing and a postponement and a hearing, and then COVID came, and then
so frustrating.
Everybody got pushed back. And then unfortunately we've had so many homicides that courtrooms are too full, and you know, so it just takes a long time to get to this point. And we aren't expecting any major revelations at this state, at this prelim, because it is the point we've learned where a judge says, yes, X number of these 34, I think, some odd charges will move forward into trial. And they just have to prove a preponderance of evidence in each of the charges, which is why it's going to take 2 days, because there's 34 or 36 charges, which is a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot, and we're, you know, going forward, and we're finally beginning this process, at least with this preliminary hearing. So I know that each of you is hoping to learn a little bit more and maybe get a few of those, you know, so many questions answered. It's been 3 years since your lives were changed forever, and I know that will never heal completely. But are there things that you are finding to do that are helping in that process?
Honestly, I just try really hard to be distracted with simple things, with very small hobbies. It's really hard to stay distracted and not be consumed by grief and frustration and anger, an immense amount of anger. But we work with therapists, and we work with people who know that we can just call and go, okay, it's a really bad day, ladies. Somebody, are you up? You know, it's maybe midnight, right? Or 2 in the morning. Are you up? This is really consuming me. I can't sleep. So it's about having individuals, both Di and Jane, and other very close friends who have just all been there for me and for my husband, Lance. And we just get by, mostly just staying distracted.
One of the things I know that you ladies have done to help with the healing process is reaching out to other families and making a difference in the community through your work with the Bakersfield 3 charity. And we're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back and talk about some of that work.